Hello, and welcome back to our series of interviews with Euros members and colleagues all over the world. It's a really big pleasure for me to introduce you to Irina Yakimenko of Intermark Relocation Russia. Irina is one of our board members and has been a huge asset to Euro. So it's lovely to see you. I can't believe it's been quite so long since we've seen each other. How are you? Where are you? And what's happening?
Well, hi, and thank you very much for this opportunity. Well, and the most important, thank you, Dom, for this initiative and for taking all this time and all this energy, because I can imagine how much energy it takes with literally interviews every day. But I think for us as a community and for us as your members, it gives a tremendous value to stay in touch, because stay in touch has a whole new dimension. As I'm saying the word, how are you? I'm good, fine. I'm good. The good has a whole new levels these days. So it's really, staying in touch is important, and I think you are doing it for all the membership.
That's really sweet of you. Thank you. I agree with you. I think connections and communication right now are so key to all of us.
I'm in, well, I was about to say Moscow, but I'm outside of Moscow in our country house, which is a great advantage. And I've been whining for the past 2 years that we're so far away from the city, that it's boring out here. It's amazing that you can go outside and do it freely. And appreciate, because in Russia this is the second week of the strongest lockdown that we have, when you literally have to have an electronic pass to get outside. You can't go to do shopping or to medical, closest medical facility, which is the nearest one to your home. So it should be within 300 meters within your home, and you can do it twice a week. But then you're not allowed to go outside for a walk, for a jog, for anything. So it's been pretty strict. Yeah, so we've been in this for 2 weeks now, without, now it's been renewed until May 1st.
Okay.
For Russia in particular, for Moscow area. But it's interesting. Go ahead.
I mean, that's a hard lockdown, isn't it?
It is. It is, because whenever I talk to our friends across Europe and the world, it's this value of going outside for a walk. You understand how much you depend on it, and how much you're not, you take it for granted. There are so many things we've been taking for granted that we get to value. And actually, it might be a very, I think maybe our world needed this wake-up call. There are some basic things that you've been taking for granted, and there are some basic things that are that are invaluable, really.
I think you're so right. It's a very strange thing to suddenly be confronted with how the things we always thought of as just so small and insignificant are now actually very, very big. Being able to go for a walk, being able to be outside, being able to see people. It's just very surreal, right?
Yeah, it is. But even, I mean, it has its benefits, right? Even with our team having these Zoom calls, it's so much fun. When it brings so much energy, so much new energy that we have never had before. The first time when everybody was like, oh, you're from home, people showing their cats and dogs and
Yeah, yeah.
and kids running around. So for our Zoom meeting, everyone joins in 15 minutes before, because the first 15 minutes you're just laughing, having fun and chatting, and that's been really, really nice. And I've always thought that, you know what, you cannot do like a virtual meeting for more than 5 or 10 people, but we're a company of 150 and we've had a Zoom meeting with everyone, and it's doable, it's fun, you know, it's if well managed.
I was just going to say that, yeah, you have to, you've got somebody moderating it quite carefully, and yeah, so that's a lot. You have a big team. I knew that anyway. So I mean, tell me, so the lockdown started 2 weeks ago. Was there anything in place before that about recommending working from home, or did you suddenly have to, poof, everybody, you're working remotely?
Yeah, well, first of all, interesting, we as a company, we started really early. So we had quite a few people who traveled for their New Year's vacation to China.
Oh,
And we said, at the time, we thought, well, we may be paranoid, but we asked these people to stay at home for 2 weeks quarantine.
right.
That was early January. So there were quite a few people who were already working from home. And since we're based in Moscow, but we have 10 countries across us, we've had a lot of tools in place how we are managing everyone remotely as well. So then I think early March, end of February, we've sent quite a few people to work from home, although nothing has been happening in Russia so far. So we had like 2 cases in the Far East, but then it's been really, I think Russia generally started very early, like doing tests from everyone who have been arriving on the airplanes, asking people to self-quarantine. So you remember, even before our board meeting, we knew that after the board meeting in Seville, we were supposed to be quarantined before all the hoopla started.
That was very early on,
Yeah, so, and it's kind of, as a company, we gradually were doing it. Then we said, you know what, everyone who is able to work from home, do it. It's up to you. And then I think, so 2 weeks we now had a strict lockdown, and 3 weeks ago, our president spoke to the people, and he said, when everybody was expecting already the lockdown, he said, I'm now announcing a non-working week, where the employers must continue paying, but you as employees, it's like a holiday week, so you're all staying home. And we were like, come on, you know, when we're as a business are struggling anyways, right? Everyone in Russia, generally, the legislation is super pro-employee. Yeah. We're on top of the fact that we need to negotiate everything, even like discussing with people working 4 days a week or something. It's an absolutely goodwill of an employer. We cannot push them. There is no furlough, no nothing that we could do. So they started off on a weird path, but then I think they realized, what the hell did we do? And they said, actually, what we meant that you can work remotely, you can do this. So it sort of evened out. So all in all, this is the 3rd week of lockdown, but the first one was milder. The last 2, the strict ones. But interesting, we as a company had to report how many employees within our team are 100% working from home and are not allowed to leave home on any work things. And then they said, we understand that there are companies who must do something outside of their home to continue operating or continue paying salaries or continue like the processes that they have. You need to register these people, and they would be provided like an extra permission to leave home. So we've registered a few of our consultants, a few of our immigration people. So actually, last week, we had one virtual home tour that we were able to do for our assignee with only our consultant going on their own and like video, well, FaceTiming essentially the property. So it's been quite an interesting journey. And it's amazing that, you know, we've been discussing for so many years that we need to try working remotely. What functions do we actually need all this office space? How can we always didn't have enough office space. And hey, now we got to test it live. And I think we're never going back to where we've been, never, you know, it's going to be different. It won't be the same. It won't be like this, hopefully. But it's definitely going to be different.
I mean, you've raised some really interesting points there. I mean, firstly, the way that it was phased in Russia was quite different to in other places. But, you know, going back, it's so interesting what you're saying about, you know, the employee legislation being very much focused on the employee and not the employer. So therefore, you're in a very, very difficult position. When I was talking to our colleagues in the US, they're kind of in the same position because there isn't so much aid, but because the US legislation is very pro the company and not the employee, as I'm sure you've seen, you know, there are 20 million layoffs in America since this started to happen. So it's so interesting that, you know, what is essentially the same response has a completely different impact across, you know, your teams. And how are you handling that? Because, you know, you must be doing a lot of financial calculating about what we're doing.
Well, we've actually calculated we need, well, with the exception of a couple of teams who were super busy, but we needed to cut our working hours to half.
And can you do that under the law?
What?
Can you do that under the current employment law? No.
Well, only if the employee agrees. Only the employee agrees. So it's really, I think we are super blessed and lucky to have an amazing team that we have, who we addressed and saying, hey, that's the situation, you know, that's where we are, that's where we want to be, in order for us to be able to be there, you know, but to be viable by the time things end, we need to work on this together. It's not about me, it's literally each and every one of us together. So the first thing I and Marina, our partner, the first thing we did, and we said, well, we are cutting our salary by half at least, and we did that as early as end of March, and then our top management did the same for them, and then it was really a matter of talking to our employees and getting their goodwill, and you know, we're all in this together, has a whole new, not new meaning, but a whole different meaning. You know, it's so deep, because we are so connected, you know, it's really not about one person or two people, it's about every single person in our organization to, you know, we either make it or break it, but it's not about how good I am or how good Marina or Tanya or our top management, it's how good each and every one of us and how much we are a part of it. But that's exactly, I think, what I think Eura is a great example of this.
Oh, well, that's very kind. I mean, I you know, I know your senior management team, and I would say you are a very motivational group. The loyalty that you have from your teams, clearly, you know, it comes from the top down. And I agree with you. We are all in this together. but management taking such a lead on that is very impressive. And I think what it does as well in some ways is maybe we didn't know quite how connected we all were, quite how loyal we all are to each other. It's very interesting.
I agree. And you know what? I think in this time, I don't know why this crisis in particular, in Russia, we've had so many different, very difficult situations and crises and whatnot. But in this particular situation, somehow I think people come out for who they are, and they do, and it happens so quickly. So suddenly all these people, it's like this is if you needed like a chemical test to understand what these persons values are, what do they have inside. It's this time that somehow it really shows. I was amazed, in some people in a good way, and some people in a not such a good way, but all this but it's so I was this is the new thing for me. And I think that's the whole why this whole crisis is very special, because it's not country related, it's not even regional, it's global. And well, there are pros and cons to it, right? With it you understand how much we're all connected, but on the other, it makes it much and you kind of feel better that you're not alone. We're all in this together, we speak the same language. But on the other hand, you understand that going out of this crisis will be even more difficult, because everyone, it's just, yeah.
It's very interesting because, we've been talking about this within the board, but, we're going to launch this cultural research project to see how cultures are responding to various measures that are put in place. And, it's really fascinating how, when you look at basically what's going on in our heads, we are all in this together. We're all experiencing the same thing at the same time. And like you say about the exit strategies, we don't know what's happening. And we were talking before the call, are you getting any information from the government about planning, dates, reopening, anything like
that? Not really. Now, well, those, as I was saying, we've been having those lockdowns week by week. And we got the information what's going to happen the following week, Friday, 7 p.m. And for us as a business, like, come on. So we always had our board meeting with Intermark Saturday, because we need to regroup and plan, okay, this is how we're going to handle next week. So now we know that we go until May 1st. So that's the longest, that's our new long-term planning. And we have no idea what's going to happen after that. Our flights have been canceled until end of April, so until April 30th or 31st. But that's, I think, on the eve of April 31st, we're going to know what's going to happen next, and then we have zero information about it. And I think you're right, it's very much culturally, and it's very much, I think our government, there are a lot of unhappy people. There have been unhappy, I know you don't have a perfect government anywhere, but we have a special situation anyways, and we've had a lot of unhappy people before, and they're being very careful on I think, taking one step at a time, and then we have a very interesting setup where you have presidents speaking and talking about all the different aids they're giving to the business and other stimuli and things that they're providing. He never announces lockdowns. He was the one who announced non-work week. And then we have the government or the mayors of each of the governors coming up with the bad news and saying lockdowns, electronic passes, no walks. So you can see how they're playing this the good cop and the bad cop situation. Very smart as always.
Yeah, I mean, you could get quite cynical about it, but I mean, it's a bit like in the UK, you know, I mean, genuinely, Boris Johnson is not the Prime Minister I voted for, but I was delighted when he came out of hospital. But it gives him, I mean, as the position of a leader, he is not now in the position of giving out the bad news. That's coming from everybody else in the cabinet, which is so interesting because, like you say, you know, when the primary leader, when, you know, your president can stand back from that and the bad news is being given, and the same in the States in some ways, a lot of that bad news is coming out of the states, I mean, the individual governors. Makes you think.
Yeah, it does, because for some reason we thought, even, well, in our organization for so many years we've been the ones giving the good news to the the people, but this time we thought, of course we should be the ones coming out to them and saying, hey, you know what, guys, we will have to cut the salaries, we'll have to cut working hours, we'll have it came from us, because who should it come from? And then you see these whole different scenarios. Well, maybe that's why we are who we are, where we are, and they are.
Yeah.
Well, it's very interesting. It's very interesting. It just, as Tanya said today in the morning, kind of struck me that she's like, you know what? In the government, they're people. They're people just like you and me, and they don't know equally as neither of us. You know, even all the scientists. Yes, there are a lot of there is a lot of research, but it's truly unprecedented.
Yes.
So I think we need to be prepared, and that's the difficult part. We need to be prepared to take one day at a time.
Yes.
And to be prepared and have the strength to say, you know what I was saying yesterday, what I was planning to do yesterday, what I was believing yesterday may no longer be relevant today. And that's that was the new thing for me, you know, that you literally one day at a time, and that's okay. Yeah.
But it's very tough. I mean, we were saying before we got onto the recording that, you know, we're both people who like plans and following plans. And, you know, that gives me great psychological certainty that I know what I'm getting up to do this today, and next week, then that deadline. And like you say, suddenly going, okay, what we decided yesterday may have to change. It's not a bad thing to learn that, but it's hard.
It's tough. It's tough, but I think it just makes us, you know, I think we're growing. We are. It's this new reality that pushes us outside our comfort zones, outside our comfort industry, outside of our comfort events. You know, it just. I think that's what. Where I am right now. It's like, okay, we've been depressed for a while, we've been super busy for a while, thinking it's going to be a month or something, but now it's with us for quite a while. You know, it's time to think forward, to get creative, to get the most out of it, you know, and to adjust and adapt and go with it, because it's part of our life now.
There is nothing else we can do. And, you know, that's the thing. I was talking to somebody the other day, and we were talking about the serenity prayer, and I can never get it quite right, but, you know, give me the strength to change the things I can, the ability to know, and the ability,
and the wisdom to know one from the other.
I can't change. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's, you know, the golden rule of coaching. You know, you need to focus on what's within your control. And that's what you need to focus on, because the rest you'll just get depressed and
Yeah.
you'll go crazy, and it won't make any difference because you can't control it anyway. um it, so
Yeah.
yeah.
I read, there was something else I saw yesterday, which was have big dreams and small worries. And yeah, I like that a lot. So there isn't necessarily like I say, in Russia, you don't have any idea of what's coming out. And also, so are you able to access any kind of funding from government at the moment? Are they saying that there might be something, or is it just a no?
Well, they the first thing they did, they listed a lot of funding, but then with a little footnote, they said all of the funding is to the most hit industries, which were essentially airlines, hotels, like all the tourist business, and restaurants, cafes, and all this. So obviously relocation or consultancy is never going to be part of that list. So unfortunately, we could not apply to any of those. Now they're trying to do something else, but essentially it's a very I mean, they're coming up with something that sounds great, but in reality, there is almost zero chance to access it. Like they were saying, the loans, you could get like mortgage, not mortgage, but interest-free loans for payroll.
Okay.
But then when you actually try and do that, it's not really realistic to get it. So far, there is a lot that is written out there. There's very little that you can really take. But I mean, we're still working on it, trying to get something out of it. But I'm not. Unfortunately, in our part of the world, you're used to the idea that you're in it on your own and on your team. The one thing they did say that you can defer quite a few taxes,
Okay.
and pay it later, but for me it's always I mean, then at some point you'll end up paying all of these taxes, this huge amount. At least you're taking it in parts. So I mean, unless we really have to, we won't do it, because but on the other hand, it's all about cash flow, right, for now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's very interesting, because again, actually, given the the disparity between the two countries, when I was talking to Rob Burns from IOR in Chicago, he said the same thing, that basically what's coming out of the US is finance and loans and offsetting taxes, and he basically said that's all very well, but I don't want to be in debt when I come out of this. So in a way, it's not really a solution.
Yeah. Yep. It's not. Yeah. Otherwise, there's not much. There's not much. I mean, what they've done is that for the people in Moscow area, actually, in Russia, Moscow and the rest of the country are two very different countries. But speaking of Moscow in particular, they said for whoever loses their job, they're able to apply for, although small, but at least some financial support as unemployment support.
Right.
But then they said, but we are looking at the employers very careful, so that they're not using this situation to like fire people. Absolutely. And we're not allowed to fire people, so people have to leave on their own will. And so it's not really helping, and people don't really want to leave right now, right?
In uncertain times, any certainty that you have has to be a good thing. So
yeah.
Oh, honey, it's really tough. Listen, it's been a real pleasure to talk to you. How are you staying positive if you can't even go outside? What do? You think to yourself, right?
How we're keeping positive? Well, connecting with
Absolutely.
teams, with friends. I mean, our Euroboard weekly call is amazing. I'm always so looking forward to it.
Yeah.
But then, you know, with our teams, we keep brainstorming and keep becoming, you know, being creative, because now, you know, you're not doing it for to be different, um, to be well, yeah, different. You're doing it because, first of all, it might help people, truly help. You know, it's no longer a luxury, it's no longer an extra service. It's sometimes it's a necessity for whoever is stuck within your region, and just allowing yourself to be completely different. And what we keep saying at many of our meetings, that, you know what, now is, it's like you're in space. All the rules that have been in place before are no longer relevant, you know, and you don't have to apply them. And this new freedom within lockdown is very inspiring. You know, it's like you can do whatever now, because it's absolutely uncharted territory. You know?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's really interesting you say that, because a lot of people that I've spoken to have said the same thing, that actually their teams have been staying positive by the fact that they really see so much value in what they're doing. You know, it's hard enough to be moved from one place to another, let alone with this going on. So
Yeah, try doing it now, right?
right, you know. It's been an absolute pleasure catching up with you, and I'd love to come back and talk to you again in a few weeks and a month to figure out where we are, and hopefully by then, you know, I have this ruler that I'm wearing that it's made of.
We'll do it outside. We'll do it sitting
Outside.
outside with a group more than 10 people.
Absolutely, absolutely. Irina, thanks so much. It's been lovely to see you, and thank you for your time. And stay well, stay positive, and we'll catch up soon.
Thank you very much, Dom.
Thanks.
Thank you for your time and your positive energy.
Oh, thank you. That's really sweet. I'll
Thank
speak to you soon. Take care. Bye.
you. Bye.